Why do people hate JoJo Part 1? I seriously don't get why people hate JoJo Part 1 so much. No joke, JoJo Part 1 is literally one of my favorite JoJo parts in the entire series. Throw 'em in, boys. JoJo Part 1. The release date, January 1st, 1987. The start of a series that will become massively popular across and considered right now as one of the greatest anime manga of all time, if not in that debate of conversation. Now, I'd like to go on to a topic about why I just do not get the hate for JoJo Part 1. I think that it was the very start of something, but it created something so huge. And Part 1 had to be one of my favorite parts, and yes, I know you could flame me all you want. But I think Part 1 was so creative and super cool with the different innovations that they had to it. Whenever I picked up the manga and even started the series, I knew that Part 1 was good. After maybe 2 or 5 episodes, I was like, okay, Part 1's not that bad. But people have just made it like this. I feel like people had this cult of people that are just like, oh my god, it's so awful, it's so bad. I'd rather watch Part 2, Part 3, blah, 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 blah. And I just feel like so many fans of this show underappreciate JoJo Part 1 for what it actually was, when I feel like it was actually a super enjoyable thing. Dio Brando. Ho ho. Another villain that you are going to find that is insane. Have you ever seen a crazy son of a b****? Well, you're gonna find out what a crazy son of a b**** is. Now, to all my JoJo watchers, I am sure we are all familiar with this face. I mean, how are you gonna be so foul to take a dude's girl's first kiss? I am sorry, but if you're telling me that's not some menacing activity, I mean, not only did he do that, I mean, dude abuses women, kills, man. Bro, Dio is absolutely menacing, I swear. He is absolutely menacing. I mean, Jonathan kind of got his get back, but not really, Hey, yo, Jonathan, get your get back for your girl, son. Mr. Jonathan Joestar. Now, I also want to keep on going into depth about, what I'm talking about. And another thing is that you need to put some respect on Jonathan's name, man. I swear, y'all haters of Jonathan are probably some of the most biased JoJo fans that I've ever seen in the world. And I get it. Even Moist Critical was talking about when he was on the episode with Trash Taste. Like I said, I fully agree. Every other part is better than Part 1. Going from Jonathan Joestar to Joseph was an absolute breathtaking, such a breath of fresh air. I'm sure people were like, oh, hell yeah, because it's you get this funny main character, super hilarious main character. There's just so many great scenes of Part 2. There's a lot of great scenes. But I feel like Part 1 is so underappreciated by so many JoJo fans that want to call it trash. Or I hate the people that will make up the excuse that's like, yeah, I'm gonna skip and I'm just gonna move on to part 3. Moving on to part 3 is so stupid. And I get it. There's JoJo fans who are like, oh my god. Like, I get it. We can all agree. Stans are 10 times more interesting than Hamon. But that's also something I want to talk about that was with JoJo Part 1 is the next topic of Hamon. Hamon was the ability in JoJo, like, just imagine, like, stands before stands, even though it's nothing like stands. But you get your typical, simplistic JoJo power. And I think that before the stands, this is why I really liked part 1, because part 1 was super duper duper simplistic on what it kept it was. And I will say I like every single other part of JoJo that I've watched than part 1. Like, if somebody said, would you rather watch part 4 or part 1? I'm gonna pick part 4 every time, because part 4 is a masterpiece. And part 1, I would say that it's good, in my opinion. I would say that it's even great, maybe amazing. But is it perfect? No. There's different JoJo parts that you can consider perfect, and you could consider and be like, oh yeah, it's not the best. But I feel like a lot of people just disrespect part 1 and don't respect part 1, nor Jonathan. And I feel like, yes, was he just this man? Probably the most normal JoJo that you were ever gonna get into the series. And yes, I can't talk, and yes, I'm stuttering, and but that does not really matter right now. It does not, because it's like there's 50 times better characters in other parts. But part 1, I loved it because of how simplistic. It's like it's like your start into something that, is the bizarre adventure we know as JoJo, But I can understand why people keep on with the argument about these characters, because it's like, how do you go from this manly character, this very masculine character, to Erina Pendleton, the female JoJo character that is underappreciated, that should be appreciated so much more. I think that she is probably the most, based woman in the show. Absolutely the most feminine JoJo female character, and also is just special to the start of the story. Like, I feel like people underestimate how much of the story, I feel like she brought in, because I was a big fan of Erina, and I think that she was absolutely the most feminine character, and probably had one of the most mentally tough minds. And people, also underestimate all the things that Erina had to go through. With the whole Dio thing, and then having to deal with Jonathan dying. You gotta realize, it is sad. It is sad, and I feel like people underestimate that a lot. And in the end, I just don't get the honest hate with JoJo Part 1. It was the starter of an absolute masterpiece of a series, even though it's not finished, but still an absolute masterpiece and one of the greatest anime, I can just say manga of all time easily. This was the starter of something so special. And I get it if people are going to be like, well, it's boring, you don't have the cool stands that you get to see in part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, etc. But, I just feel like it is, absolutely underappreciated for what it did for the JoJo franchise as a whole, and the creativity that came out even in the manga. When I read into this page, which this looks sus, but, I feel like whenever I was reading into this, I just think the details in the art is absolutely amazing. Like, this is masterful. Like, this is masterful art, and that is something that has to be my favorite part of the JoJo's franchise as a whole, is all the detail and the art and the mastery that they can come up with as a series. So I just feel like part 1 is just super underrated. Like, I just don't understand the hate for it. And I get it. Like I said, you might be maybe a little bored of it, but I just think it's super underappreciated for what it is. And I think that we really need to start putting respect on part 1's name, even though it probably won't get to that point since like the toxic fandom of JoJo.
Like, what do you say fuck me for?